Well, hi Lou. Thanks for joining me.
Hi, KJ. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, my pleasure, my pleasure. So the reason why I wanted you to come and chat, because obviously at Caylent we do a lot of hiring all across uh, U.S., Latin America. So we do a lot of interviews with non-native speakers, and I've been doing this for a few years now, so I'm kind of used to it. Uh, but recently, when we were able to go down to Buenos Aires and meet the rest of our wonderful talent team. Thank you for your gracious hosting that you guys did. Time was time, but I realized how challenging it is to be in a situation where you're not you're the language being spoken is not the language that you're comfortable with. So it really, kind of increased my appreciation of people like yourself who are putting yourself out there and having a conversation about a job, which is a lot bigger deal than me struggling to tell the waitress I don't want milk with my coffee and not remembering how to do it. And having no formal training in Spanish, knowing certain phrases, but having taken high school French. And every time I was trying to think of a Spanish word, I thought of a French word because that's my brain is wired that way. But anyways, enough of that. But that made me think about the challenges of trying to communicate in a non-native language, and even especially so when it's about a job, which is pretty important. And I thought that having a conversation like this, could give some insight to some people who may be looking to apply to a place like Caylent. A lot of companies now are hiring in Argentina and Latin America, especially Brazil, uh, and maybe give them ideas of how it is and what to expect, and maybe some tips so that they feel more comfortable and natural. As I said, I've been doing my September of 2020. My first interview was with someone who was not a native English speaker. I don't remember who it was exactly, but the challenge is there. My concern, obviously, trying to how am I going to communicate with someone who I know that well. So, but I'd like to get your thoughts. 'Cause obviously you interviewed with us and did a great job because here you are. But what as a non-native English speaker, when you're approaching going into a job interview, what kinds of things do you do to prepare, and how do you, what's it like? I guess.
Wow. Well, first of all, if you want to ask for a coffee with milk in Argentina, how would you say that?
Cafe con leche.
Yes. Yes.
But I couldn't remember how to say no milk. I'm sitting there, and I'm like,
In,
what is the no word?
I mean, you could say no leche, but it sounds like kind
I
of
ended up
weird.
putting my hand over the cup. She got it.
Yeah, exactly like that. This is like universal,
No, no, no milk.
but well, if you also can say sin leche, that's without milk.
There we go. I froze under the pressure.
Love it, love it. Okay, so first of all, yeah, it's not easy. It's not easy to speak in a second language, and to work in a second language, and to interview in a second language. It's difficult, and also it's all about your confidence. If you're not confident enough, it's like you can't go through with that. It's very, very difficult. So in my case, well, thank you for interviewing me. Thank you for choosing me. And thank you also for making me feel comfortable during the interview, because that's one of the things that native speakers should be aware of, trying to make the interviewee feel comfortable and to feel safe, like they have a safe space. They are not going to be judged or criticized. That's something very important, because you can froze even more if you feel like the other person is not, how can I say, it's not embracing you, like they are not listening to you carefully. They are bothered because you are maybe waiting too long, or maybe having some delays in finding the exact word, and you start to get nervous. And if you see the other person that is not nodding along, they are not smiling, you get more nervous, and it's like a terrible, terrible cycle. And you end up blanking or frozen, and well,
Right.
not good.
How do you avoid that when
Okay.
you got the
Yes.
call, you're going to sit down and interview with me. Uh, you don't know me from anything, but you can imagine by my name and my location that I probably do not speak
Yes.
Spanish. Um,
Yeah, I thought that.
it was obvious.
Johnson, KJ Johnson. Yes, yes, yes. So well, in my case, what it's useful for me, and also I prepared and helped some people, to go through this process a few years ago. So what I usually tell people is, first of all, to get prepared, for anything, right? Not only the interviews, but any meeting that you have, it's always good to be prepared because practice makes perfect. And there are some questions that you always gonna find in an interview. It doesn't matter where you are taking that interview, United States, Argentina, or whatever. There are some like universal questions, so maybe you should practice those because you know that you're gonna get that at certain point. So practice what you want to say. Sometimes if you leave it like to luck, like, well, I will not prepare and we'll see what happens, maybe you end up saying something that you didn't want to say, like, and you start thinking, why did I say that? So try to see where you want the conversation to go. If you have like a very strong skills regarding, I don't know, specific technology or whatever, and you want it to go that way, try to make that happen intentionally. So that's one of the tips that I would give. Practice in front of the mirror. That seems kind of silly, but it's good to see yourself, how you are talking, and your body language. If the body language goes along with the content of what you're saying, of your speech,
Right.
it I don't know if it has happened to you, but some candidates are so nervous that they say the right things, but they don't show it with the face, you
Right.
know? And yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great tip for anybody because especially now in the Zoom world, you don't want to be like you hop on and there you are, you're seeing yourself on the screen, and now, oh my gosh, and you've never actually seen yourself doing that before. It'd be very helpful to sit in front of a mirror and see how you act and pretend and work through and play through these things. But
Yeah,
yes,
absolutely. And that's something that will happens in the virtual and remote work because when you interviewed in person, you weren't aware of your face. Nowadays we see each other, you see yourself in every meeting. So it's kind of weird to actually, this is how I look like, this is how I
right,
smile or whatever. So it's a good thing to practice in the mirror even more now than before. So well, practice and try to make it consistent, right? So if you're saying something it's like a happy thing, something that you're excited about, try to show that excitement with your body language as well, so that the interviewer knows that you actually mean that. Because if not, it kind of seems like you are faking it, and to fake is not something good,
right.
even though there's something like theatrical about it, because we are actors at a certain point. You are trying to sell something, or someone or whatever. But well, you should be like the most genuine that you can be, right? That's I think
Okay.
another tip.
One thing I noticed that some people do is I'll and I I don't discount anything because they do this because I try to understand and be empathetic. So I go through my introduction, and then always ask, how do you hear about Caylent? Tell me about you. And oftentimes the person will start off. They will introduce themselves, state their name, and then go through their almost like they're like reading a summary of a resume or whatever. And that's I understand why they're doing it because that's like you said, they probably practice that and they want to get that out there and they say, okay, these are the points I need to make. So in from if as someone interviewing someone from a different culture, different country, understand that that's how they're going to do. Well, that's not the question I asked. I don't care what your name is and all that. I know your name. You've established that. Just let them do that, and I don't
Yes.
hold that against or use a judgment on that. Okay, this is how they're going to progress. But along those lines, what me as an English speaker preparing to interview a non-native speaker, what advice would you give someone like myself? What should I do?
Interesting. So first of all, be patient. Patience means a lot, sometimes we as recruiters, we need to take more time, a little more time that what it's already scheduled for, the interview. And if that's the case, we need to do that because, well, it's giving the other the opportunity to actually show their better selves, right? But being patient. Also, when you start an interview, in my case, what I do, and it helps a lot, is to establish some rapport, transferencia in Spanish, like, hey, where are you living? Is it hot? Is it cold? How's your day? How's your day going? Happy Friday, we made it. You try to establish, something in common, like a common ground, in order for them to know that it's going to be a conversation and it's not going to be a test or anything like
Right.
that helps a lot to start with in a good way.
And a great rapport builder right now, as we're recording this, is the World Cup, Copa do Mundial, right? So I'm speaking to people from Brazil and Argentina, both quarterfinalists. Argentina goes today as we record.
Exactly.
Hopefully everything goes well. But yeah, no, that's exactly right. To break it down.
Yeah.
And
maybe.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, maybe 3 minutes. Maybe it's not like 15 minutes of small talk, but it's very important. And in our culture, at least Argentinian culture, we tend to really like, small talk and to share some personal things, at the beginning in order not to feel so exposed, maybe.
Right.
So well, that helps a lot. Being kind, rephrasing questions in case maybe you asked using an idiom that we don't know because you only know idioms when you actually live in a country, so studying, it's harder to get that that vocabulary.
Right.
So be accessible to rephrasing. Rephrasing helps a lot. If you don't understand something, ask again. It's not a bad thing for you to ask again. I'm sorry, I don't know if I made a mistake, I wasn't clear enough, like blaming yourself and not the other, like, sorry, maybe I wasn't clear enough, I wanted to know more about this experience. So that's a great way to rephrase. And don't take words literally, because sometimes we choose a word that is not the exact word, or maybe it can mean something different. So make sure about that. If it sounds weird, or maybe it's a word that, well, it shouldn't be used, please tell the other, tell the candidate, hey, what do you mean by that, right? Just
Right.
in case. Sometimes we use it.
That makes a lot of sense, and I try to be aware of things like that, and I try not to use idioms or colloquialisms, and try to speak in a neutral as language as possible, which is very hard because every area has its own things. I mean, I know like the Spanish spoken in Buenos Aires is different than the Spanish spoken in another section of Argentina, which is different, obviously, than the Castilian Spanish that most schools teach. So you're close. I mean, I tell the story often of having gone through 6 years of French in junior and senior high school, thinking I knew French well and could be conversational. Right after college, I took a job as a bank teller in a neighborhood that had a large Haitian population, and I figured, oh, this is no problem, I can communicate. No, I could not. Totally different versions of French. So
exactly. Exactly.
Something to keep in mind there. So that's maybe one of the reasons why I haven't learned too much Spanish, because I don't want to, not knowing it well enough, I don't want to say something in the wrong way.
Exactly, or maybe offend someone.
Yeah,
you don't know.
I don't want it to be patronizing either, you know. I mean,
Exactly. Exactly.
so
That's
other than pleasantries like Buenos Dias or whatever, I try to avoid anything like that.
Yeah, that's why being flexible and being kind and open-minded helps a lot, because you need to be flexible. If not, well, no one would pass an interview, no one would be able to communicate. In general, communication is a misunderstanding like all the time because you don't get the right word, or whatever. That's why we actually talk and speak
Right.
among each other. But well, yeah, flexibility and kindness, I think with those two things, you can make it.
Right. And something I would say from both sides, from my experience, don't assume that the way the interview starts is how it's going to
Hmm.
go and progress. So I've many times where it's been kind of stilted because the expectation, they don't know, maybe the person has not done a lot of interviewing in English. They're nervous. They don't want to make a mistake that would cause an issue. So the beginning of the interview, maybe the answers aren't very clear, maybe you have a little hard time understanding exactly what they're saying. But then as the interview goes on, one, you get used to how the person speaks. So, okay, that I can understand what they mean on that. And two, as we start getting into topics that, like you said about the rapport, especially with, we're talking to people who are DevOps engineers and cloud architects and all. And when they start talking about the work they're doing and the tools, all of a sudden it's like, oh, this is a different person has now popped in because their passion is in there, and
Yes.
that comes across, which is what we're looking for. We want people who are passionate about the work and want
Hmm.
to push the boundaries and get on the rocket ship that is Caylent. So
Hmm.
that's hopeful there, but it's also gives you more insight. And so when my advice to someone like myself interviewing a non-native speaker is to let that person get to the point where they can express themselves freely and expect that, and don't be, keep giving uh, a chance, give it a chance to just be open,
Yeah.
right? Just, okay, this is,
Yeah.
don't write off the interview immediately because the first thing you said they didn't respond to correctly.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And after all, there's only like 45 minutes, an hour, to demonstrate everything that you have like that chance to actually well, show what you have been doing and everything. So well, yeah, it's you should give the chance to the candidates to actually show it, right? And
Okay.
another thing that I was thinking about is that, like, we will, as recruiters, and well, as you mentioned, recruiters working with different candidates all over the American continent. um, that's something that we always talk about, is that we don't believe in perfection because no one knows everything, but it's all about the attitude, like the right attitude. So if, for example, as a non-native speaker, you can't find the exact word, feel free to work around it. Don't say the word in Spanish, because sometimes, or they know that I'm Argentinian, so they say the word in Spanish. But the good thing that you have to show is that you can work around it and you can overcome the obstacle, because when you are working, you are not gonna know everything, right? So you are gonna
Right.
Google, you're gonna do some research. So the good thing is that we actually want to see people with that attitude, like yes, I'm gonna do it. I don't care if I made a mistake. I don't care if I don't know this. I'm gonna get this done either way. So we really appreciate that type of attitude. We don't expect you to know all the vocabulary in the world, but yeah, being willing to overcome it.
So what I'd like to get your idea now, obviously, so we talked about you as a candidate interviewing in your non-native language. You're now obviously as a recruiter speaking to native English speakers, and that's not your native. What challenges or and how do you see the interviewees respond to you?
So yes, it's hard. It's hard. Yeah, I have to put a lot of effort sometimes when the accents are tough. So yeah, that's why I use everything that I have available, headset, volume, everything. I really need to concentrate, even more so that if it would be in Spanish, of course. So first of all, I tend to tell candidates that I'm a not native speaker. Like upfront, like, what? I'm not a native speaker, so if at any point I ask you to rephrase something, that's why, So they know, and they don't care. They're like, hey, don't worry, that's amazing that you are working in a second language. The same thing that you actually told me, Kate, because when I studied, I thought, hey, I'm gonna look dumb, I'm gonna sound silly because I will say things that are very, very basic. Maybe I think about something that is very complex, and then when I say it in English, it's like, it's so simple. The idea is so simple. I'm like, it sounded better in my head, like Sofia Vergara says, you don't know how smart I'm in Spanish, So it's just like that. So it's kind of frustrating. So but when I talked to you about that, you actually told me that you respected and you appreciated a lot. You also mentioned it here in this meeting, but that you appreciate a lot of people actually working in a second language. And I was like, hey, you're right. It's like a double effort now that I think about it. So well, that's also something that we should keep in mind. And well, candidates have never made me feel uncomfortable or anything like that. They are very kind. They rephrase a lot. That it has happened to me that one candidate used so many idioms, so many during the, but I cannot even, I mean, I should have counted them. So many idioms, like every word that came out of her mouth was an idiom. And I was like, oh my God, I need to study more, and I would be looking for it in Google, like, okay, what is this? And well, I needed to ask again. So sorry, come again. What did you mean by that? So well, that's what we need to do.
Sure. Now, we talked about that. We didn't do it in Argentina when Buenos Aires we were there. We wanted to have, I call it the idiom game, where you and the BA crew can just say, hey, what does this phrase mean?
Yes, we have to do that. We
That
have
could
to
be a
do
future
that.
video too. We could do that. You could like pop up the idiom and I could respond to it.
Yes, I love that. I love that. I have a lot of in my mind that we could actually show because they are so weird.
So it's put the idiom up. You say what you think it is, and then I'll say like, no, this means that.
I love it. I love it. I'm gonna look so dumb, but I love it.
No, don't
Let's do
just
that.
show how dumb the idiom is what it will do.
We should. The next video it's gonna be around that.
Excellent, excellent. No, this has been a great conversation, Lou. I really appreciate you taking the time. Well,
Of course.
any final thoughts or anything you think we haven't chatted about that would be helpful for
I
this topic?
Wow, I would keep talking like for an hour, but I know that videos should be short. No. I think this is great. This is great because we have all of these concerns as non-native speakers, especially. So it's great for the candidates to see that also they're going to feel comfortable with us because we are already trained. We know what we are doing, and we love what we do. So don't be afraid of going through an interview in English. And a worst scenario possible is that the English level is not quite there yet. So that's also something, that's also a feedback that we'll provide, in the interview. So what we do is to tell the candidate, sorry, you know what, English, it's not at the level that is required for this position because, well, we have to talk to customers and all of that. But if you keep studying, and keep practicing, we can revisit you in the future. Maybe in 5-6 months, we can give you a second chance if you like Caylent and you are still interested. So worst scenario possible is that you don't get the job in that in that stage, but maybe in the future, you can actually join Caylent after doing some studying, so just try.
Exactly, and there is kind of a sliding scale on what passes as English that is professional competency. I think is the term that we use now in our our job descriptions and the like, and that can mean a lot to different people. And my advice in a good way is uh, don't don't think that you're too bad or too good with your English. I've been into both. People are very nervous and don't think they speak English well enough, and they're fine. And then you have people who think that their English is really good, and it's not yet. So just just be yourself, relax, and just try to have that conversation. Um,
Absolutely.
and
Yes, totally.
and we also offer English courses, don't we? As one of our benefits. So
Yes, we do. We have a teacher, personalized classes as well, personalized follow-up. So in case you want to improve your English, here's also the place to do that.
excellent, excellent. Well, Lou, again, I really appreciate you taking the time and chatting. And again, hopefully this is helpful to both interviewers and interviewees. And go Argentina.
Yes, we'll see. Thank you.
Bye.